Today I'm in Kfar Hanassi. Among the general population of volunteers who came here, you became quite well known here in Israel as a member of Kibbutz later when you returned. Okay. And there was a certain volunteer who, and you were his, let's say, Kibbutz father. Mentor. And who was this?
Guess.
I know already. Okay. And his first name was Boris.
No, I can't. And his second name happened to be Johnson, but that didn't matter.
Well, I would like to compare it.
Okay, all right.
Because
Last
I had
word
a
to
very
Aryeh,
different
Alex.
experience from
Okay.
Alec. I was a bachelor. Alec was a married man.
He's having a good laugh here.
No, I know.
And I'm not sure you had already
I know what's coming.
children. Yeah, I was a bachelor, and I was together with other bachelors that were together with me that came from the movement. And our life was sleep, eat, and work. We got up in the morning at 5:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30, worked till 4, 5 in the afternoon, and very often when we finished work in the fields, we were on Toronot to unload trucks
On a
from
rota
time to
system.
time. That's right, and that was our life. Now the accent on those days was on children, families with children, and they had a life. And the bachelors' social life, there were no girls here.
So why did you stay?
We were in denial because we came to kibbutz, and we were educated to believe in the kibbutz,
I like the word
and
denial.
therefore we suffered this. Eventually, I found my way, and others did as well. Also, I'd just like to say the bus used to rock up on a Friday, and we used to stand by the bus stop to see if there were any girls that got off the bus for the weekend. And I found I have friends in Jerusalem, and I remember finishing a shift on the tractor, which I started at 4 o'clock in the morning. I finished at 12 in the afternoon. This is on a Friday. My friend in Jerusalem invited me to an all-night party in his basement. I finished work. I ran home, ran back to the wooden hut, and I went to the public shower. Had a quick shower and got changed. And I ran and I hitchhiked to Rosh Pina, and from then I hitchhiked all the way to Jerusalem. And I got to Jerusalem about 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, and spent the night at the party. And that's where I met my wife.
Oh, well, all's well that ends
We
well.
are now a family of 5 children and 12 grandchildren.
And by the way, what I haven't mentioned there to the people watching this channel, that you are not only friends, but you are in-laws, I think.
As it
That is
happens,
right.
yes,
That's
yes,
right.
yes.
So-
Because
My daughter married his son.
I want you to know that was a very successful marriage, by the way. But my problem started with I was living with my wife for a couple of years on movement work. We worked in the movement. I told you, I was the Scouts and she was the German. Yeah? And we lived together even then. Before we left the kibbutz, we got married officially in a very nice hall where we all got
Not
married.
before you left the kibbutz.
Yeah, just before
you
we
came
left.
to the kibbutz.
Just before we came to kibbutz.
You
Yeah.
said before we left.
Sorry. Before we came to the kibbutz,
Thank you.
we had a big wedding in London, which our parents wanted. We didn't. Our parents wanted. And I remember I had a top hat and a tails and, the whole geschäft. Now, people that know me know I like to act. I like to perform. And this top hat was perfect for me. I had a top hat, I would come on, and with the top hat. My wife says, take the top hat off, and if you put it on again, the end of our marriage. Short marriage, but that's the end of it. So I took out my hat off, and I went into the hall, and afterwards, and I never wore it again because that was my life. I was dying to put it on and do a little dance.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to mention was that we got married in a proper, what our parents thought was a proper affair, in a synagogue, and we got perfectly well married, and then we came ready to come on Aliyah, and I think that perhaps one of the biggest, I would say, challenges to my life was leaving England and coming on Aliyah to those days we didn't know, we went to Mine 3. We didn't know where we were going. I think that was one of the biggest challenges of my life. Fortunately, I was married, so I had a wife. Aryeh was not married when he had it on his own, but I was married, so I was, like Aryeh said, I was lucky. And we had a child very quickly. So I had, much easier for me to settle on the kibbutz.
Another question, you said it was a challenge for you. Was that because you were a Leeds football supporter?
Say that again, I missed the sentence.
Was that? Did you feel bad about leaving Leeds and coming to?
Yeah, I was very upset about leaving a good team. And my wife was from Everton, so she was a very good supporter. No, that didn't bother me worrying about.
Okay,
football.
we'll take a break here. Aryeh, you want to say something else?
Yeah, well, I was not. I wasn't 100% complete with being on the kibbutz. And one of the reasons was that I didn't have a profession. I was working in the fields, although I was in charge of the branch growing wheat. But it was hard work and shifts, night shifts, and Shabbatot we used to work at weekends, and it wasn't a life.
For a Jewish boy.
Yeah. Eventually, I was sent as a shaliach to South Africa.
As an envoy,
to South Africa for 2 years, and I saw the world again as it was, the world that I left, and I was back there, and I was the leader because I was representing Israel, and I enjoyed a completely different status. Mm-hmm. I wasn't just one of the many as I was here, equality, etc., and to be nothing more than, a bird wolfing. There I was, the kibbutz representative and the envoy to Habonim, and it was just after the 6-Day War. So that injected in me the need to go further and to develop myself. I came back, and I wanted a change, and then the war broke out. The Yom Kippur War broke out.
In 1973.
Now this is the interesting. I read 2 interesting books while I was in the army. I was called up for 6 months. I was fighting on the Golan Heights. And at the end of the war, I continued to be mobilized for another 3 months. And during that period, I had time to read, which I did. And one of the books was The Third Wave by Alvin Toffler, where he foresees a change in the world on the background of high-tech and computers and technology, etc., and the world is going to change. What we did now, or many of us who have professions, those professions will not be required any further, and we have to think of change. And the second book I read was by a psychologist, Amir Lieblich. She did a research on how families were feeling on the kibbutz today in a changing world. I'm talking about 1973. And she interviewed 20 families in kibbutz Tel Katzir. I think it was Tel Katzir, maybe not Tel Katzir, Ein Charod. And she published this book based on these interviews. And reading these interviews, you could see that there was going to be change on the kibbutz. That it was not the usual, it wasn't the usual what kibbutznikim would talk about. It was something else. And then I said, Aryeh, I've got to take myself in hand and also make a change. When I came out of the army, they heard in the area high school that I'm looking for another job, and they invited me to be a teacher. I said, what do I know? I left England before I studied university. No, he said, you were a farmer, you drove a tractor, you can teach tractor driving. Or you can teach, you were a shaliach, something you can teach. I accepted it. I found that I was a teacher. I had the qualities of being a teacher. And I set up a project where every child, every pupil in Kita Yud, was it 16-year-olds?
The 16-year-olds.
16-year-olds. At the end of the year, each one had received a tractor license, where he passed the test in theory and practice. And I taught them all how to drive, and also taught them theory, etc. From that led me on to go to university, which the Ministry of Education covers the cost of university studies for teachers. And
so not just the kibbutz, but
no, generally, on condition they continue teaching. And I finished a BA and an MA in history and political science, and then I became a history teacher and a teacher for Ezrachot and political science. Today, I am teaching seniors in the local area council, and I'm teaching them history and current events, current affairs and political science. I'm doing it to this day.
Fantastic.
I want to just continue. I want just to add to his story, which is we were quite friends by then. So I knew what was going on. I was fortunate enough to study before I came on Aliyah, and I got my degree in engineering in England already. So I came as an engineer, professional. So even then, when I came to the kibbutz was not interested in me going straight into engineering. He wanted me to work on a farm, and I told you the story about the fish and the chickens and The end was, the person in charge of building on the kibbutz met a girl from America, and he decided to give it a go and go live in America and get a green card. And he went, and the kibbutz said, look, I'm afraid the bloke in charge of building is going there. Here you, and would like you to take over. I said, it'd be a pleasure. It'd be a pleasure. I said, okay. I said to the bloke, who was called Gabriel, yeah. I said, Gabriel, okay, where's your office? And he brought out a little suitcase, the size of this thing. But not mine, this thing. He says, that's my office. I opened it up. Bits of paper and notes and thing. He says, that's it.
What year was that?
And that was in 1958, 59 probably. 59.
Mm-hmm.
And I became then in charge of building in Quantity, which I carried on to this day, I never stopped being in charge of building. I was fortunate enough, like Aryeh says, he was also fortunate enough later on in my life, when the kibbutz was in financial stress, as always. Shmuel Chatzor, again, was the manager of the kibbutz. And he says, Alec, building is very good on the kibbutz, it's very expensive. We can't afford you to have, you're going to have to work out. And they sent me to the county council, and I became the engineer for the county council, and which was very good for me. I enjoyed that very much. I was there for 11 years, and I was responsible for 29 kibbutzim, 13 moshavim, all the building and planning of all those. I did that for 11 years, which was very, very nice. I think that was probably one of the most successful feelings I had about studying in England before I came on Aliyah. I think that paid me back for what doing, like Aryeh said, he came later on, but eventually he got to getting a degree, and when he got it, he appreciated the fact that he had a degree, and I was lucky to have it from the very beginning.
And what you built here in Kfar Hanassi, I know that, for example, Kfar Hanassi was one of the first kibbutzim to build a combination of a community centre and a dining room, which you opened in 1964. Yes.
Yeah. That was my...
Which became an example for many other kibbutzim. Which in all of the kibbutzim, just the dining room. Self-service.
Self-service, where before that we sat in the dining room, we were served. Toranim.
By people on duty taking turns to serve and work in the dining room.
And we sat at the table and we were served. Now it was something completely new.
A big change, 1964, self-service.
But I wanted to add here that I was sent as a shaliach to London to be the head of kibbutz representatives in London, to represent the kibbutz movement, and also...
This was just before the Six-Day War?
No, I'm talking about 1981.
Okay.
And it was the time of the Lebanese War, and the ambassador at the time, who was... what was his name?
The guy from Manchester?
Not from Manchester.
The ambassador.
The ambassador in London.
Called
me, and he said, Aryeh, I want to have a talk with you as the kibbutz representative. What was why did he call me? Israel was from the point of view of public relations was in a all-time low as a result of the Lebanese war. And he said, the kibbutz has got a good name. He said, I want you to help me improve the name of Israel through the kibbutz. And as such, I was invited to talk to all sorts of organizations, societies, including the House of Lords. Lords, what do they call them? Israel, no?
The Israel lobby?
Not the Israel lobby, but lords that supported Israel.
House of Lords.
Yeah, in the House of...
Well, there was in those days, in 84, Grevel Jana.
Yeah.
Grevel Jana.
And I gave talks about the kibbutz. Who were we? What were we? Why were we? And I've got the letters to this day with thanking me so much for bringing them the knowledge and the news of
I keep saying we're going to take a break, and as soon as it's on the edge of my tongue, then Alec turns around and says he wants to say something.
I also was at a certain stage. The government in this country decided to send me as an embassy to the north of England, Manchester, Liverpool.
That's
Glasgow.
where we met.
That's where we met. Manchester, Liverpool, Glasgow, Dublin, and Leeds. And I stayed in Leeds. And I was in charge of the whole of the north of Israel, which was very good. And I think I appreciated doing that. But that wasn't the story. In 1960, when was the war? 6-Day War?
1967.
66, I think I was
67 was in the
No, but you were in England from 65,
66.
Yeah.
Then I was about to come home after 2 years, and the war broke out. That's when the war broke out, 67, the 6-Day War. And they said, Alec, you're not going home, you're going to stay here, because we want volunteers to come out to the country. So I went there.
And that was the start of the big volunteer movement.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say.
That's right.
That was the beginning of the big volunteer movement. And I set up a department in Chapeltown Street. I think Aryeh probably knows where Chapeltown Street was.
Chapeltown, no.
Chapeltown Road, yeah.
Chapeltown Road.
I had an office there, and I set up a place for people to come and volunteer to go to Israel as they thought, to fight the war or something. I said, yeah. What happened was a lot of ex-Palestinian soldiers who were very much against the Arabs at the time used to come. And they came with their rifles, and they came, I'm here, lad, I'm here now. I'm ready to fight them. Just set me up. I said, slicker, pardon. But unfortunately...
When you say Palestinian soldiers, you're talking about Arabs or Jews?
No, Jewish Palestinians.
Jewish Palestinians, yes, who were here in pre-state days.
Yeah. And I said, I'm very sorry, but we can't send anybody who's not Jewish. That was my excuse anyway. So I cut him out, and he says, okay.
So in fact...
And that way I saved a lot of problems, because a lot of the Palestinians, the troops, the British...
Are you talking about the British Mandate troops?
Yeah.
Now I'm
They
with you,
came,
yes.
and they were very interested in, and that saved my day. But what I wanted to mention was, because Aryeh mentioned something very similar, because the war was very short, but I was in Leeds, and I'd been sent to England at the time to build Moadonim, to build youth centres.
Abonim centres.
Yeah, the movement decided that living in houses, we used to live in old houses, and was not good. We should have a proper youth centre. And I built the first youth centre in Leeds. That was my first job, and I built this youth centre. And then the war broke. I just want to mention the fact the war broke out, and the Israel government asked urgently, we need blankets. You know why? Because they thought the war would last, and then, So in Leeds, not a problem, blankets, it's a woolen trade. I went round, got a few of my members to organise it. Within, I think, a day and a half, I had the whole moor done, the whole youth centre, up to the ceiling, full of blankets. Thousands of blankets. And then the Israeli government telling me, Mr. Alec, I wanted to say to you, we don't need any more blankets.
So your job was sending non-Jewish volunteers to work and help in the kibbutzim, while the members of kibbutz were in the army, well,
we can put it that way. I also sent a lot of Jewish volunteers who wanted to work in the kibbutzim, and they thought they would, work, and they actually, in fact, did farming. But it doesn't matter. We sent a lot. We sent...
now, among the general population of volunteers who came here, you became quite well known here in Israel as a member of Kibbutz later when you returned.
Okay.
Okay. And there was a certain volunteer who, and you were his, let's say, Kibbutz father. Mentor. And who was this?
Guess.
I know already. Okay. And his first name was Boris.
No, I can't. And his second name happened to be Johnson, but that didn't matter. When he came, he was a student. He was 19, I think, 20, 19. He came to the kibbutz with his sister, by the way, and they came for 3 months. They were sent by Marks and Spencer's, who were forgot who the direct owners of Marks and Spencer's were.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Can't remember just now. I don't remember for the moment. They sent him here, and he came with his sister. His sister was very good. She said, look, okay, and she worked, I think, with the children's house. He was sent to work. I think he worked in the laundry. And he was hanging clothes on the line, you know. And he said, Alec, very good. I think I have to see a bit more about the country. I said, yeah, okay, but you're here for 3 months, you know. He stayed for 2.5 weeks.
2.5 weeks, I think.
And then he says, Alec, I must go and find out about what's going on in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. So he went. And ever since then, he's kept in contact with me, by the way, ever since then.
Very nice.
My birthday, he sent me special greetings. The ambassador came to deliver it to me. 90th birthday, Alec, don't forget Boris.
Okay.
I just want to say that I didn't mention before, the job that, that I had as the kibbutz representatives, ran an office, and we were in I'm talking about 1981, which was 20 years after you.
Yeah.
The kibbutz office we handled all the volunteers coming to Israel. And during my period that I was there, I sent 5,000 volunteers to kibbutzim in Israel. And it was really, it was something that was really very popular to come to volunteer on a kibbutz. And this is why the ambassador called me, that the volunteers come back with such a good impression. And this is the best way of explaining Israel to the world. And the kibbutz became a real symbol of Israel, positive Israel.
Okay, well, we're going to definitely take a break now. I'm going to stop the camera. We continued talking for quite a time after this. I'll upload the last part in a separate video later. I'm ending this section with a few photos taken in the 70s and 80s by a former volunteer in the Gan Yebet. His name is Shigafumi Tanaka, whom we all got to know as Lutz. He's an excellent photographer. Thank you, Lutz, for giving me permission to use your photos. This is also a golden opportunity for you to send me your photos. If you want to be here on this vlog, please send the before and after shot. Let me have your name, the name of the kibbutz where you volunteered, the year you were there, and one sentence about your time there. When I have a few, I will upload another video about volunteers. My email is kibbutzivri@gmail.com. That's it for now. Keep well and don't forget to subscribe. Shalom and lehitraot.